Okay, so I made a mind map of the educational credit between the American Opportunities Tax Credit and the Lifetime Learning Credit because it was difficult for me to really see this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through this real quick just so then it's easier to understand how this works. So first off, the educational credit, the taxpayer requirement. As you can see, it first needs to be a qualified educational expense from a higher education, paid for an eligible student or is eligible student, and the taxpayer spouse or claim dependent. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So first off, it needs to be an eligible educational institution. Okay, so educational credits, eligible educational institution. So pretty much all accredited public, nonprofit, and proprietary private owned profit-making post-secondary institutions are eligible educational institutions. So then now you determine okay, or is a taxpayer claiming the student as a dependent? Then the taxpayer can claim that credit. Or is the student not dependent of a taxpayer, and so the student in fact can claim that credit for themselves. Okay, so then now we have the eligible student. Like what makes them an eligible student? Well, first off, they have to be issued a TIN number by the due date. And well, there's where is it? Well, that's what makes an eligible student. But there's gonna be disqualifications and things related to um, whether or not you can qualify for the AOTC or the lifetime learning credit. So next we're gonna have to determine what are qualified educational expenses. So qualified educational expenses, first off, it needs to be paid with tax-free funds or it may not be used to claim credit. So these funds must have come from a non-tax uh, a taxable fund. Like the money came from something that's taxable. So the qualified educational expenses, first off, for both American and Lifetime, it could be things related to tuition, and then you'll get the tuition statement 1098-T from the institution, as well as fees related to that, and qualified book supplies and equipment purchased from the educational institution. The main difference between the American Opportunity Tax Credit is that you can actually have qualified expenses that are not purchased from educational institutions. So you can purchase these book supplies and equipment from anywhere that aren't related to that have not been purchased directly from the educational institution. So now qualified expenses include room and board, insurance, medical expenses, transportation, similar living, blah blah, expenses with hobbies or courses not related, unless the course is part of the degree itself. So next you have to pick whether you want to do the American Opportunities Credit or the Lifetime Learning Credit. So the thing is, with the American Opportunities Tax Credit, there's a lot more things than the Lifetime Learning Credit. So first off, for the American Opportunities Credit, you have to be enrolled at least half time. But then with the Lifetime Learning Credit, it could just be even one course. You must not have claimed the AOTC in 4 years prior. So you can't have claimed the credit 4 years in the past. You can't have claimed it any of those 4 years. You can't have claimed it already. You must have not completed your first year of post-secondary. So what it means is you've never done a bachelor's degree, and you have not been convicted of a federal or state felony for possession or distribution of a controlled substance. So those are the requirements for American Opportunities Tax Credit. For the Lifetime Learning Credit, those actually do not apply as well. And really, the only thing that is going to determine whether or not you're qualified for Lifetime Learning Credit is if it's a qualified educational expense, as well if it's a qualified educational institution, and if it's a qualified student. So how much you can deduct? Well, first off, for the American Opportunities Credit, qualified expenses can only be up to 4,000 in total. So like even if you have more than 4,000 expenses, you could only qualify 4,000 of that as a qualified educational expense. Even if it's qualified, you can only deduct. You can only take 4,000 of that. So the first 100 of the 4,000, you get the full 100% of that. But the next 2,000, you only get 25% of it. That makes any sense. What that means is that the maximum credit you can have from the AOTC is 2,500 per year per student. While the lifetime learning credit, you only get 20% of the first 10,000 of quality expenses of a maximum of 2,000 per tax return. So like these are the income limits for the AOTC and the lifetime learning credit. So if you can pretty much get full credit if you make less than 80,000. Okay, but then if you make over that, like a little over that, like let's say you make 90,000, you can still get partial credit. If you're over 90,000, you get no credit. You will probably won't qualify for any credits. And for the American Opportunities Credit here, you can see that so like American Opportunities Credit, one of the things is that it's partially refundable. So 40% of the 2,500 will be refundable, and 60% of the rest of it's not refundable. So if you guys do the math, pretty much you can get $1,000 of refundable credit per year from the AOTC and 1,500 of non-refundable credit, while all of the lifetime learning credit is not refundable. So you would get 2,000 if you max it out. You would get 2,000 of non-refundable credit per tax return. So after you've determined your credits, what happens is you put it into a worksheet, educational expense worksheet. You do a worksheet, you do the credit limit worksheet, you put it into the form 8863, the American Opportunity Lifetime Credit, Learning Credit, and then you put in the Schedule 3, which is additional credits and payments, and then you put that in your 1040. So that's how the educational credits work. This is just a quick mind map I created just to help understand like how this kind of works in regards to like the differences between the educational credits that are available, as well as what qualifies you and like the qualifications from either of those credits, as well as disqualifications, as well as income limits and like credits itself in regards to like how much of it's refundable, how much is not refundable, and like the process it would take to put that into your 1040.